Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. And as always, I hope that you enjoy story number 1, Human but Darker, written by IndieKid1011. Before you had mastered fire, we had tormented your kind as predators do to their prey. Eons of hunting for sport before you struck back, and strike back you did. Until that fateful day, we were known truth. Then, we were nothing more than myths, legends, stories. We had kept it up that way, but it got harder. The invitation of the ultraviolet light bulb caused problems for vampires. Better guarded livestock caused us werewolves to hunt wild beasts to survive. So much more. We were a hidden minority that could be erased at a minute's notice. But then you began to expand to other planets. Other planets were an excellent place to go. Forest planets were dense. You let livestock roam free. We werewolves had no issue disappearing with few cattle here and there. Dark worlds were wonderful for the vamps. Less sunlight and less crowded. Easier to keep up the masquerade. Then the Lbry came. They preyed on you for sport as we did centuries ago. We sat by and bit our tongues, lest we be rediscovered. They publicly displayed their hunts. The screams of humans were not something we enjoyed. We felt guilt at these displays. Then it happened. It was an average hunt for 3 Lbry. Their target was nothing more than a young girl. They were interrupted by a homeless person, telling them to leave them alone. Everyone expected them to send them flying as they did. Everyone expected them to laugh as the gill coward on the ground was picked up and gutted. But no one expected a man to transform and unleash a full force of 1,000-yeared Wendigo to turn 3 hunters into mincemeat, saving the girl. Instead of the horror of being discovered hitting us, it was more as if a light went off in our heads. We had watched them, thinking about how we would stop them if only we had the power. It wasn't that we had power. It was that we have power. We learned many things quickly in a short time that we began to revolt that scientifically fire and plasma are the same thing. Spiritually, plasma weaponry did jack. It didn't even touch the blood-sucking pansies. And you humans who welcomed a sudden turn in your favor and gifted us in such incredible enhancements. Body armor, groomed claws, UV shields, the technology you gained in your unafraid state. We learned a lot in our war against Lbry. And now we stand here asking to be amongst you, not as beasts that we were in the past, but as you are, human, but darker. Yorktawny, Alpha of the Wolf Pack of Fenrir, the Proclamation of Unity. End of story. Story number 2. Empathy, written by a writer. Let me tell you a story. Ever since I was a child, I dreamed about captaining my own ship. I imagined myself zooming through the galaxy, meeting alien races, saving people, showing off humanity's bravery, our strength, our cleverness. Being the shining beacon of hope throughout the universe. Humanity Feck, yeah, I would think. But when I got to the academy and started studying alien races, I realized how naive I had been. We're not the strongest race there is. We're not the smartest. We're not the bravest. We're better at some things and worse at others. We're middling. It was a real blow to my ego. I mentioned it to one of my professors, asking if there was anything that we would do better than any other species. I remember the look he gave me. It was a hard and serious look, and then told me the one thing that we're better at than any other species. Empathy. I thought that was a bullcrap answer. Who gives a feck about empathy? It's true that in compensation to other races, the human brain is more developed to experience empathy. But it just didn't feel like a quality to be proud of. It felt like being told by your mother that you have nice hair. I'll admit I put a real damper on my enthusiasm for exploration. But I kept going. I worked, I studied, and eventually I graduated. I became an officer on a ship of Terran Union, and I saw the galaxy. and it turns out my conclusion had been correct. We are middling. No one scampered away in terror at the sight of an approaching human. All looked on in awe. We weren't even sneered at, considering lowly or upstarts who were just there. Then we encountered other races. Some remembered hearing about our species, others didn't. There are hundreds of FTL races. We didn't warrant a special attention. Eventually, I accepted it. It sucks, but that's life, isn't it? Accepting disappointment and making the best of it. I continued to serve on a starship, and I did well. I advanced, and eventually I became the captain of my own ship. Not a grand war cruiser or anything. My ship was little more than a glorified cargo ship, transporting goods, messages, and people to other worlds within the Galactic Alliance. One day, we were sent to drop off some supplies on a smaller backwater colony planet called Treft. You may not remember the name. That's okay. It was a farming planet. It had maybe 100 people from several different species. No humans, but their families. People who had gone there to start their own lives. It was admirable. You might notice I keep saying was. That's because when we got there, it was burning. Raiders had been there. They'd hit hard and fast. They grabbed everything that wasn't nailed down, burned whatever they didn't need, and killed whoever tried to stop them. It wasn't done out of cruelty. It was done out of a sense of efficiency. If homes are burning, their owners are too busy trying to put it out to stop you. And if somebody tries to stop you, they are slowing you down, so killing them is the most efficient thing to do. Simple math. But to me, it wasn't math. We landed on that planet and did what we could to help, put out the fires, tend to the wounded. After the fires were gone, I wandered around, seeing if any supplies could be salvaged for the colonists to use. And that's when I saw her. This little girl, who looked to be about 6 or 7 by human standards. I don't know what race she was. She looked like a cross between a koala and a cat, but with green fur. She was wearing a simple dress which had a few burn marks and was covered in ash. She was clutching a little doll in her arms. She was kneeling in the dirt, and in front of her I can only assume were her parents, lying on the ground, dead. She just knelt there, silent, staring at the unmoving forms of her parents, tears soaking into her fur. I remember walking up to her and placing a hand on her shoulder. She flinched, but didn't say or do anything. Then I bent down and picked her up, holding her close. At first she was stiff as a board, barely acknowledging me. But then I felt her tiny arms move up, wrap around my neck, squeezing me. And then she wailed. I will never, for the rest of my life, forget that wail, the sheer despair and terror and loneliness of only a child can feel so completely. I will never forget as her entire body shook. The tears and cries, not enough to expel all those feelings that she had deep inside of her. I hugged her. I rocked her. I made calming noises. None of it made any difference to her. I remember crying too, not wailing, not sobbing, just tears running down my cheeks as I carried her back to the makeshift shelter where the other survivors were. One of them approached me, said that she had been the little girl's neighbor and that she could take her. The girl resisted, her arms squeezing more tightly around my neck. I don't think it was me in particular that she wanted to hold on to. She just wanted something, anything, to be solid and constant in her world. For those minutes that I'd been carrying her, had been a solid foundation for her to hold on to. Eventually, we were able to shift her over to the neighbor, and the girl clung to her just as fiercely. I walked away. I never found out her name. A few hours later, members of the Galactic Alliance militia showed up. Much like we did, they did what they could to help salvage what was salvageable and prepared the survivors to be transported to another planet. When I asked what they were going to do about the raiders, they said that there was nothing that they could do. Again, this wasn't cruelty. It was logic. To chase after the raiders would be an FTL chase. It would be jump after jump after jump, putting strain on the engines until finally one gave out. Maybe it would be the raiders. Maybe it wouldn't. But it would take days, maybe weeks. It wasn't worth the resources. I walked back to my ship, and as I did, I remembered what my professor had said to me. Empathy. And I understood. I didn't just understand the girl's pain. I felt it. I felt her loss as if it had been my own parents that had been killed, my own home that had been violated. I felt hers and everyone else's pain on that world, and I realized I didn't give a damn about time and resources. I just wanted to get those responsible for this pain. I gathered my crew and told them. I told them I wanted to chase down those bastards who did this, to teach them what mistakes they had made. And I told them that if anyone was against it, to speak up now. They were all silent. They had seen their own horrors, shed their own tears. Not one was unmoved by what they had seen. And so we went. The raiders had little more than a day head start, and we quickly tracked down their FTL signature. We barely had time to order their surrender before they jumped, and we followed, again and again. The next few days were a blur of jump after jump, coming up after jump, racing towards them, only to have them spin up their engines and jumping again, and us following closely behind. We barely slept, doing everything in our power to keep our ship running, to make sure that we outlasted them. We were tired and frustrated. More than one occasion I thought about giving up, that this was foolish and pointless. And then I thought about the little girl, and all the sorrow and rage within me, and I kept going, and so did my crew. 5 days, 3 hours, and 15 minutes. That is how long the chase from Treft lasted until finally the raiders' engines gave out. We didn't hesitate. My ship isn't a warship, and my crew aren't soldiers. We are not ever intended for combat, and yet the raiders never stood a chance. Maybe they were tired after the long chase. Maybe they never dealt with anything more dangerous than a defenseless colony. Or maybe the rage of my crew was just too much for them. Whatever the case was, we crushed them. We boarded the ship and took them all prisoner. And that's how we got here, the captain said, a humorless smirk on their face, turning towards the leader of the raiders, who was tied and bound to a chair. What do you think of my story? Can you guess the moral of it? The raider swallowed, eyes wide, trying uselessly to escape his bonds, to flee from this insane human. Please, he begged. I'm sorry. I never do it again, I swear. The captain leaned forward, cupping the raider's head between both hands, nails digging into his temples. See, there it is. There's the fear, the terror. You are capable of feeling it. The captain's face was inches from the raider's, sour breath against his skin. But it wasn't for those colonists. You didn't feel anything for them. I bet you aren't even feeling anything for your crew right now, and are at the mercy of my crew. No, this terror you're feeling is all about you. And that is a problem. The captain let go, chest heaving, as if he had been running a marathon. They walked over to a table where they picked up a large wrench and hefted it, beating the weight in their hand. My professor was right. We do feel empathy more than others. Sometimes it hurts us, but it also makes us stronger, gives us strength. They turned again to look at the raider. I want you to know, just like I felt in those colonists' pain and terror, I'm going to feel yours as well. They then raised the wrench high and swiftly brought it down onto the raider's knee. End of story. Just a quick shout out to the T5 peeps. Bob the Dragon, Cat Crab Lobster, Data Magnet, Dark Machine, Bezic, Try Again 95, Fudic Yol, Astrea the Dreamer, Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Athelia, Meridian 117, and Jordan Bucksmorm. Thank you very much. And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed. There are links down below, both to support this channel and for the author of this fiction. Anyways, I hope you all have a fantastic one, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.